Have you ever had that feeling like what you're searching for is right there, almost within reach, but still hidden somehow, like a word on the tip of your tongue?
Yes. That sense of an underlying knowing, a kind of truth just beneath the surface of our, everyday thoughts. It's a very human feeling, I think.
Like it's not something out there we need to find.
Perhaps not. Perhaps it's more like an inner landscape we need to uncover, to
Yeah.
reveal.
Okay, that's exactly what we're diving into today. This core idea, you find it in many contemplative traditions, that, well, inside each of us there's this deep wellspring of wisdom, sometimes called Buddha nature.
And yet the world constantly pulls our attention outwards, doesn't it? We look for answers in, well, books, other people's opinions, chasing external goals.
It's almost automatic, right? Got a question? Ask Google. Got a problem? Find an expert. And I mean, those things have value, of course.
Of course.
But what if the deepest guidance isn't from someone else, but from like an inner compass we already have?
Imagine maybe a treasure, but it's not buried on some distant island. It's hidden right here in the room you're in now.
So the quest isn't about going somewhere else.
Not necessarily. It's more about learning to see what's already present. The real task then becomes clearing away whatever is blocking our view.
Okay, let's start clearing the way. I love this image you mentioned earlier, the mind is a mirror.
Ah, yes. Picture a perfect mirror, absolutely clean, reflecting everything just as it is with total clarity. That's like the innate nature of our minds, our basic capacity for, well, wisdom.
But life happens, right? As we go through things, that mirror gets dusty, smudged.
Exactly. Life leaves its marks, doubts, fears, the beliefs we pick up from, our culture, our families. It's all like dust settling on that mirror.
And it obscures the reflection.
It does. But the key thing is the mirror itself isn't fundamentally flawed or broken. It's just covered.
The potential for that clear reflection, it's still there underneath.
Precisely. And that inherent purity, that unbroken potential, that's really what's meant by Buddha nature. It's the possibility for enlightenment, for deep understanding that exists within every single being. It's not something we have to earn. It's just our nature.
Wow. So it's like we're born with this amazing capacity for insight, but then, I don't know, life throws a blanket over it and we forget it's there.
Think of a lamp, maybe, covered by thick cloth. The light is always on, always present, but it's dimmed, hidden. Our inner wisdom is like that light, just waiting.
Which explains why we so often look outside ourselves for answers. Why do we do that? Why is that the default?
Well, the external world offers things that seem tangible, immediate. A book gives facts, a teacher gives instructions. It can feel maybe safer to look for answers in something separate from us.
It's like looking for a quick fix, maybe.
Yeah.
A ready-made solution.
And while those external guides can be useful, absolutely, they often only offer temporary fixes. They don't always get to the root, the deeper patterns of thought and perception that, well, create the problem in the first place.
That really makes sense. Like trimming the weeds, but leaving the roots. And the story of Sarah you mentioned, that really hit home for me. Someone who had all the external success, but still felt empty.
Sarah's journey is quite common, unfortunately. She did everything right, according to the usual script, ticked all the boxes, but that inner sense of peace, it just wasn't there.
And all her efforts, workshops, self-help books, they were all focused outward, weren't they?
They were. It highlights that tendency we have looking outside for something that can only really be found inside. It wasn't until she turned inward, really inward, through meditation.
Is sitting still,
Yes.
observing her own mind.
Yes. That quiet observation, just watching the inner landscape without judging it, that's what allows us to see the roots of our unease, the hidden beliefs shaping things.
And in that moment, she described that sudden feeling of, oh, I already know what I need to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't advice from anywhere else.
No. It was a quiet knowing rising up from within her. It wasn't about learning something new, but recognizing a truth that was there all along. A deep intuition finally cutting through the noise.
And her life changed after that, didn't it? The choices she made were more authentic.
They flowed from that inner recognition, yes. Which brings us back to the mirror analogy, doesn't it?
How so?
She was trying so hard to polish the reflection, her external life, her achievements, without realizing the distortion was coming from the dust on the mirror itself, her inner state.
Ah, right. You can't fix the reflection by wiping the reflection. You have to clean the mirror.
Exactly. So the big question then becomes, if this wisdom is always here, why does it feel so far away sometimes? What separates us from it?
Yeah, what puts that film over our clarity? What are those clouds?
In many traditions, this covering is called ignorance, avidya. But it's important to understand it doesn't mean stupidity or lack of intelligence.
Okay, so not about being dumb, but more like having blind spots.
Yeah.
Habitual ways of seeing things that keep us from seeing clearly.
Think of it like wearing slightly smudged glasses all the time. Our view is filtered through layers of assumptions, biases, old habits. It prevents us from seeing things, well, as they actually are.
Now, these aren't just one thing, right? There are different kinds of clouds, so to speak.
Indeed. Several key patterns tend to veil our inner wisdom. One of the most powerful, I think, is fear.
Fear, yeah. It can be completely paralyzing. Fear of failure, fear of what others think, fear of the unknown.
And often, fear springs from trying to hold on to things that, by their very nature, change. Clinging to impermanent things, possessions, status, relationships, even our idea of who we are.
When we try to grasp onto things that are always shifting, we create anxiety.
Exactly. It's fertile ground for fear. Take the story of Arjun, the musician. Gifted, passionate, but terrified of performing.
Why? Was he afraid he wasn't good enough?
Partly, but deeper than that, it was a fear tied to needing approval, wanting validation from outside. His breakthrough came when he really grasped the idea of impermanence in Eka.
That everything changes.
Yes, including praise and criticism. They come and go. Realizing that helped him detach from needing that external validation so desperately. It freed him up.
Wow. Letting go of needing everyone to approve. That's huge. It makes you think about your own fears, where they come from. Okay, so fear is one big cloud. What's another?
Another significant one is attachment. It's subtle, but very pervasive.
Attachment. But isn't connection good? Loving people, enjoying things.
Connection is vital. Love is vital. The issue isn't connection itself, it's the clinging. The rigid expectation that things must be a certain way for us to be happy, or that people must behave exactly as we want.
So the suffering comes not just from pain, but from fighting against it. Resisting what's happening because it's not what we're attached to.
That's a core insight, yes. Resistance, often fueled by attachment, creates so much inner turmoil. Think of Lisa, the entrepreneur.
The one chasing financial success.
Yes, she got it. But her happiness was completely tied to keeping it. The fear of losing it meant she couldn't actually enjoy it. There was this underlying hollowness.
Until she shifted her focus.
Exactly. She learned about non-attachment, which doesn't mean not caring or not striving. It means engaging fully, doing your best, but without that desperate white-knuckled grip on a specific outcome.
And that brought more fulfillment.
It did. Paradoxically, letting go of the desperate need for a certain result often brings more ease, more freedom, and sometimes even better results. Attachment keeps us stuck worrying about the future or regretting the past. It pulls us out of the present.
Okay, so we have fear, often rooted in clinging to the impermanent, and attachment, that tight grip on outcomes. What other clouds get in the way?
A really powerful and often invisible one is societal conditioning. The beliefs, the values, the shoulds and shouldn'ts we absorb from the world around us.
Like the air we breathe, almost. We don't even notice it shaping us sometimes.
Precisely. And while some social norms are helpful, of course, many others can unconsciously limit us, pushing us down paths that don't truly align with who we are deep down.
Like Mark, the lawyer you told me about, who secretly wanted to be a writer.
A classic example. He followed the sensible path society valued, suppressing this deep creative longing for years because he'd internalized the idea that writing wasn't practical, not a real job.
How did he break free from that?
He started exploring practices that cultivate what's called shoshin, or beginner's mind, trying to look at his life and desires with fresh eyes, without all the preconceived notions and judgments he'd absorbed.
Approaching things with curiosity, like a child almost. Letting go of, I know how things are.
Something like that, yes. It allowed him to reconnect with that passion he'd buried. It's about questioning those scripts we've been handed, asking if they truly fit us.
That sounds incredibly liberating.
Okay.
So, fear, attachment, societal conditioning. Is there a fourth major cloud?
I think in our time, a huge one is simply the sheer noise of modern life.
Oh, tell me about it. The constant pings, the emails, the news cycle, the pressure to multitask. It's relentless.
All that external stimulation, that constant input, it effectively drowns out the quieter voice within. Our intuition, our inner guidance, it leaves very little room for stillness or quiet reflection.
Like Emma, the student you mentioned, who is completely overwhelmed.
Yes, juggling classes, work, social life, constantly reacting, never pausing, until she tried just a simple mindfulness exercise. Just breathing.
And what happened?
In that small pocket of intentional quiet, amidst all the chaos, she started to sense an underlying stillness within herself. A place of calm that was there all along, buried under the noise.
I think we've gotten so used to the constant racket outside that we don't even recognize the quiet wisdom inside anymore. So these clouds, fear, attachment, conditioning, noise, they obscure the mirror. What's the Windex? How do we clean it?
The primary tool, the fundamental practice for clearing these away is mindfulness.
Mindfulness. We hear that word everywhere now. But what does it really mean in this context, like practically?
At its core, it's about paying attention, deliberately, to this moment, right now, without judging it.
So just noticing thoughts, feelings, sensations as they come and go.
Yes, observing them, acknowledging them. There's fear, or there's that critical thought again. But not getting swept away by them, not adding stories or judgments, just noticing.
Like watching clouds drift across the sky, maybe? Not trying to grab them or push them away, just watching them pass.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the wonderful thing is mindfulness isn't some innate talent. It's a skill. You can cultivate it with practice.
And it doesn't have to be complicated, right? No need for fancy cushions or silent retreats necessarily.
Not at all. It can be woven into everyday life. Even just taking 5 minutes, sit comfortably, close your eyes if you like, and just bring your attention to your breath.
Feeling the air come in, feeling it go out.
That's it, and the mind will wander. That's what minds do. When you notice it's wandered, gently, without criticizing yourself, just guide it back to the breath again and again.
Okay, starting with the breath, and then.
As you get more comfortable with that, you can extend the awareness. Notice sounds around you without labeling them. Notice physical sensations in your body. Observe thoughts popping up, just like bubbles rising.
And even doing everyday things mindfully, like washing dishes or drinking tea.
Absolutely. Feeling the warm water, smelling the soap, tasting the tea, feeling the warmth of the cup. Bringing that non-judgmental awareness to simple activities, it anchors you in the present.
So this consistent practice, this gentle noticing, it starts to loosen the grip of those clouds.
It does. You start to see the habitual reactions more clearly. There's that fear response again. There's that attachment kicking in. And just seeing it with awareness creates a little space.
Space to choose a different response. Or maybe just not react automatically.
Exactly. Space for choice, space for letting go. And as those clouds gradually begin to thin out, dissipate, well, the underlying clarity of the mirror naturally starts to shine through.
So it's less about trying to be wise and more about creating the conditions for wisdom to emerge on its own. Okay, so mindfulness is the cleaning cloth. What are the key steps, maybe, in this process of uncovering?
Well, as mindfulness deepens, it naturally leads to a shift in how we relate to our experience. It's not just about noticing, it's about how we hold what we notice.
Okay, how does that unfold? What does that look like?
A really crucial part of it is cultivating acceptance. Real, deep acceptance of what is. So much of our struggle comes from resisting reality, wishing things were different.
Acceptance can sound passive, though, like giving up. But earlier you said it wasn't.
It's far from passive. True acceptance is an active engagement with the present moment, just as it is, without the layer of judgment, without the resistance. It's acknowledging the whole reality, the pleasant, the unpleasant, the neutral.
And this ties back to what you said about suffering, that it often comes from fighting against pain, not the pain itself.
Precisely. Dukkha, the term often translated as suffering, really points to that friction, that dissatisfaction that arises from resisting the way things are. When we fight reality, we create inner conflict. Acceptance allows us to meet whatever arises with more equanimity.
Equanimity.
Like balance. Yes, a sense of inner balance, steadiness, peace, even when things are difficult. Not being constantly thrown off balance by every little thing.
So finding a way to be with discomfort without letting it completely take over, how do we nurture that acceptance?
Practices like gratitude can really help. Consciously looking for things to appreciate, even small things, can shift our focus away from what's wrong and soften that resistance.
And self-compassion.
Yes. Treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we'd offer a dear friend who's struggling. Acknowledging our pain without adding self-criticism. That's huge for acceptance. Radical honesty with ourselves, too.
Okay, so mindfulness brings presence. Acceptance helps us be with what's present without fighting it. What's next on this path?
Well, as our awareness sharpens and our resistance lessens, our actions naturally start to change. We begin to act more from that place of clarity, of inner knowing. This is often called right action in Buddhist terms.
So it's not just about inner states, it's about how we engage with the world.
Absolutely. It's about moving beyond just reacting out of habit, fear, or conditioning, and instead making conscious choices guided by our deeper values, by that inner wisdom.
Like Maya, the graphic designer you mentioned, who was hesitant to start her own studio.
Yes, her fear and self-doubt were loud, But through practice, she started tuning into a quieter, intuitive sense that this was the right path for her. She learned to trust that inner signal and took inspired action despite the fear.
Inspired action. So knowledge or insight isn't enough. It needs application.
Insight needs to be lived, embodied. When we're less clouded by fear, less driven by attachment, our actions tend to become more compassionate, wiser, more aligned. It flows naturally from that inner clarity. Setting intentional goals, listening to your body's signals, even celebrating small wins, these help integrate insight into action.
Mindfulness, acceptance, inspired action. It feels like a spiral, each part reinforcing the others.
It is very much like that. And as we continue on this path, something interesting can start to happen. We might begin to experience moments of what's sometimes called effortless effort, or wu wei.
Effortless effort. That sounds...
Contradictory.
It does, doesn't it?
But it points to a state where our actions align so perfectly with the flow of life, with our inner nature, that they don't feel forced or strained.
Like water flowing around rocks. It finds the path without struggling.
That's a lovely analogy. Or think of a skilled athlete or musician in the zone. There's intense focus, yes, but also a sense of flow, of letting go, where the action seems to happen through them rather than being forced by them.
It's not about being lazy or passive.
Not at all. It arises from deep presence, de-skill, and a profound letting go of egoic striving and control. When the mental clutter clears, there's space for intuition, for creativity, for actions that are perfectly attuned to the moment.
So the breakthroughs happen when we stop trying quite so hard, in a way.
Sometimes, yes. By clearing the inner obstacles, we create the space for wisdom and inspired action to arise more naturally, more effortlessly.
It really all comes back to that first idea, doesn't it? That the wisdom isn't something we need to go out and find.
It seems it's already within us. The journey is less about acquisition and more about remembering, uncovering.
Gently removing the layers of dust from that inner mirror.
Yes, a process of unveiling.
So for everyone listening, maybe consider this. Perhaps the most profound journey isn't about getting something new, but about remembering the wisdom that's been with you all along. What tiny step, maybe, could you take today to gently dust off your own inner mirror?
Just take a quiet moment, perhaps right now. Take a breath. Notice what's here without needing to fix or change it. That quiet knowing you seek, it's closer than you think. It's been with you all along.